as our response to COVID-19 in Nigeria. Particularly members of the press, I want to appreciate you and thank you for your resilience and tolerance generally over the course of the last couple of days that we've conducted this media briefing. I welcome you to the national briefing for Friday, 10th April 2020. Today is the 12th day of the lockdown of Lagos, Ogun states, as well as the Federal Capital Territory. As reported to you earlier in the week, our evaluation of the impact of the restriction order continues. The Presidential Task Force, a small committee of us, this afternoon had the privilege of further briefing Mr. President on the assessment of our response to COVID-19. And at the appropriate moment, we will continue to adequately inform Nigerians of government decisions. In recognition of our shared responsibility as citizens, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 renews its appeal to Nigerians to continue to comply fully and willingly with all the advisories and orders given in this regard. We underscore the deadliness of the coronavirus with all seriousness. Yesterday, for about 5 hours, the PTF briefed the leadership of the National Assembly as part of our continuing collaboration between the executive and the legislature. Earlier in the week, the leadership of the National Assembly met with the Economic Committee on the impact of COVID-19, ably led by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and also met with the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development with her team. The discussion we had with them yesterday was rich, factual, and robust in our national interests. The COVID-19 pandemic has provided both arms of government the unique opportunity to significantly assess and agree to reform our public health system in the short, medium, and long terms. I wish to thank the National Assembly under the leadership of the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives for their invaluable guidance and commitment to deploy all legislative resources and powers to support the fight against COVID-19 virus. On the issue of face masks, the Presidential Task Force is developing a national policy on its usage, and Nigerians will be duly informed as soon as the policy is finalized. Let me use this opportunity to commend and thank our frontline health workers for their commitment and sacrifices. The nation appreciates you and shall do everything possible to protect you. The government is concluding on the issue of your incentives, medical and life insurance, as you battle to save lives. Yesterday in the National Assembly, I mentioned at the National Assembly that I became fully aware of the state of our medical system during the execution of this task force assignment. It has become clear that this has been taken out of context. I must clarify that I am aware and has indeed been a champion for the reform and transformation of the healthcare system. And in my modest way, even in my community, I'm working assiduously to see to the improvement of the healthcare system in my small community. However, this PTF assignment has afforded me the opportunity, and I believe all members of this committee, to dig deeper, interrogate, and x-ray the system better. If I had asked the Permanent Secretary General Service Office to make available to you since yesterday the copy of my 7-page address to the National Assembly, where I spoke about what this current opportunity of the pandemic gives to us. In paragraph 9, I said the pandemic has provided the unique opportunity to x-ray the state of the national health care system, which is in dire need of reforms and funding. The weaknesses in our health systems became more glaring given the way more established health systems in Europe and America collapsed under pressure. The plan, therefore, I'm quoting from my speech yesterday, the plan, therefore, is to lay a legacy foundation for the immediate, medium, and long-term development of the health system. I even went further to suggest to the National Assembly in paragraph 12, I said, in addition to providing the kind of leadership already demonstrated by the National Assembly, let the National Assembly find itself in the unique position to do the following, though not exhaustive. I said, 1, develop a legislative framework to prepare Nigeria for any future pandemic. 2, develop a legislative framework for reforming and transforming our healthcare systems. 3, strengthen the legislative framework for economic growth through domestic manufacturing of our medical and pharmaceutical products. Deepen the legislative oversight during this pandemic and beyond. Pass legislation that will further ease the ability of the executive to cushion the impact of the economic decline. And I requested them to be part of the community mobilization and enlightenment efforts. So for anyone to think that I didn't know the level of the deplorable state of our healthcare systems, that's a complete misrepresentation. For the benefit of those of you that don't know me well, I come from rural Nigeria. I was born in a village almost 64 years ago that didn't even have a hospital. It had only a small missionary dispensary, probably with 1 midwife. No birth certificates were offered. So I don't even have a birth certificate. I have a declaration of age. A lot of you sitting here are privileged to have been born in better, more equipped medical facilities. So from birth, I know the state of our medical healthcare system. I'm not a foreigner. I'm fully seized of it. My statement was totally taken out of context because that was not the reflection of what I said. But having to serve on this committee gave me a further insight into what is happening. Most of the things you see around are specialists or hospitals or clinics. You just see the buildings. You don't know what is inside. But having to serve on this committee has given me an opportunity of walking into these facilities and looking at what they have in direct relation to what they ought to have. And my conclusion on that is that they don't have what they ought to have. So I wanted to give this explanation and clarification so that most of you should not think that I'm an Ajabota. No, I was born in rural Nigeria. I grew up in rural Nigeria. I went to school in rural Nigeria. I still live in rural Nigeria. Yola is my home. I'm just sojourning here in Abuja. At the end of my work or whatever I'm doing here, I return back home, which is rural Nigeria. And I'm going to live with the facilities in rural Nigeria. I want to thank you for your understanding. And the truth about it is that there's so much ground to be covered. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be distracted by unnecessary controversies. Before I yield the podium to the Minister of Health and other members, I want to once again appeal to all subnational entities to recognize the serious nature of this situation and to synergize with the federal government so that together we could win the war. We do not have different response. We have one national response. It is expected that each and every subnational government should fit into this national response so that we can collectively deploy our resources, our strategies, and our personnel to directly deal with this unseen and uncommon enemy. I now yield the podium to the Honorable Minister of Health and other members of the PTA for further updates. And I want to thank you very much for listening.